Right, so I'll start by sharing my screen so that at least we can be on the same page. Alright, once you confirm you're able to see my screen, you can just confirm by giving a thumbs up. Okay, alright. Okay, perfect. So we basically did a bit of some concepts yesterday, whereby we were able to add functionality to search. We were also able to add functionality to raise the categories and to filter our blog articles by the category. We were also able to get the recent posts, all right, and the tags as well. All right, we also went further to ensure that this data is available on all the pages that they require to be seen. Then, and of course, that is where we gave that small assignment for you to see how we can avoid all that repetition of code across the different views. All right, so the next section we introduced, we mentioned something about comments, or rather about the comments that we have here. So we did something. We did what we did is that we defined how the comment model will look like. So we basically defined the various fields, and that is where we stopped at. All right, so so we are going to pick it up from here. So what we said is that once you create a model, for you to start or rather for it to be mapped to the DB, you need to make migrations and then migrate, right? So for now we just have it as a class here, but then for it to be mapped to the DB, we need to do the migrations. So all I need is to stop this server, right? I can clear the screen. Then I need to do the migration. That is Python manage.py make migrations. Right, so the next thing after making migrations should be migrate. All right, so we believe that our model has been mapped to the DB. Otherwise, if you get errors, then you can always check because they usually give hints on where you need to rectify. All right, so okay, so in this session we are going to cover one method of form submission, and just to let you know, there is another method that exists, but we are going to cover one of the methods. So in here we need to send this data from the template that we have here directly to the server. All right, and something you need to know is that well, there are two ways of doing it. There are two ways of submitting that data. So one of it is that we have these blog details, which happens to be the view that gives us more information about a blog post. So we can process the incoming comment using this view here, and the other option is creating your own view, rather a view that will process the comments. So it's pretty easy, especially when using this view. And I think let me just take you through the two of them, because you come across these two methods, and at least you need to run something from them. All right, so what I'll be doing is that, or rather, let me just tell you something about forms. So there are quite a number of, or rather, there are a number of form submission methods, and the very main ones are the post and get method. So if you looked at what we were talking about when we were submitting, what do we call this? When we were trying to search for a blog, for a particular blog article. Let me just put that, press enter. All right, server is not running. Sure, that's true. All right, let's run the server again. All right, so even before we, okay, so there is what you're seeing here. All right, so we might not have mentioned yesterday, but this is how the get method triggers URLs to behave. So whatever input that you put on a form, you get it here. All right, so a get method is not the best method to use when submitting information that you want to save to your DB, and especially when you have to deal with say credentials and basically any information you are storing to the server. You need to use the post method. So the post method will silently do the work without adding more information to our URL, right? So get method, one, it can be used to capture information from our template and send it to the server. It can be used to send data that will be saved to the server, but in most cases it's used to kind of filter or other information that is not going to be saved to the server. But should you get a scenario where you need to use the get method and still save that data to the server, it's still allowed. But many other cases you need to use the post method, especially when you are saving some data to the server, when you want to write the database. All right, so what we are looking at is that we will be looking at how to capture the information from the user and save it to the database. All right, so there are some things that we need to put on check. So when in a scenario where you decide to use this particular view, the view that is giving us more information about a blog post, then you do not need to define a URL, because you already have a URL in place that is taking care of this view. All right, so all I need, I think I'll do it here. I'll capture comment, then maybe mark end of comment. All right, so I'll do my logic here. And the first thing that we need to check is if the method that has been used to push that data is post. So we talk of request.method. We need to check on the actual method that does that, right? So that we can process that request accordingly. So we need to do, if request.method is equals to post, then we proceed with the rest of the steps. So there is another interesting section that you also need to pay attention on, and the fact that you are not you may not be a front-end developer. You at least need to appreciate some crucial concepts when it comes to submitting a form, right? One, you at least need to acknowledge there is some attribute. Let me show you. Okay, so this is the form. Okay, all right. So in some cases you just need this ID, but when you are submitting this data without using JavaScript or any other form submission method, that is, you are the interaction is between this form and Django and the Django view that we have defined, then we need to add in another attribute in each of these fields. So we basically have 3 fields for now. So the first field is supposed to take in a name, the name of whoever is posting that comment. So in here you need to pass in a name, and this is not related to this name that the user is going to input here. So this name attribute is meant to give this input a name that will be used to identify it in the views that will be processing this data. So this one we can simply give it a name, right? Then for this for the email, we need to give it a name attribute, named email. All right, so it's a kind of a unique identifier, so that once we go to process this data, we refer the data of this input with email. All right, then we come to this text area, and we give it we add a name attribute, and remember we are adding the name this attribute name inside the input. So don't think of having it in the label or elsewhere. So you are putting it in the input field or the text area, as we are seeing here, that will be capturing the user data in form of the comments. All right, so in here we pass in a name, and I think we named it message. All right, so we are still going to call it message, but just for you to note is that these names must not necessarily be exactly what you named them here. Right, but there is a section that we are going to see that you need to use the same names as we have here. All right, so in this case we can name it let me name it message as well. So we can name it message, comment, any other name that you feel relevant. All right, so once you have this in place, all right, so okay, let us process let me just show you how to work on everything before we leave this form. All right, and again, once you ensure that your input fields have this name attribute and they are well set, for instance, this should be the name should be, the type here should be text. For email, there is a unique type for emails, have it as emails. Then for text area, that should, okay, this one actually doesn't take in a type. So types, we are talking about types when we talk of input fields. All right, so in case, for instance, you needed to duplicate this and probably take in the second name, and you happen to copy and paste with this type email, then you need to adjust that accordingly. All right, so in case you are not well informed of the various types that you can use on HTML forms, then I would refer you to at least check on some resources about HTML forms, because remember, we have various types of inputs that we can fetch. We have checkbox, we have radio buttons. What else? Well, I think we have those. In case there are others, please check. All right, so in here, once you need to enclose all your input fields within the form tags. So this is what we have. It has to be there. All right, so the next thing that we need to ensure that it's in place, we have the method. All right, we have to mention the method of form submission, and this is where we said we want to submit this form using the post method. So we have in we put post in there. Then again, we also have the action. So the action should contain the URL that reads to the view that will process this data. Again, if that view happens to be the same view that, for instance, in our case, that is that, or rather, okay, let me just come again. So what I mean is that if the view processing this form data is the same view that is showing us more information about our blog post, then we do not need to add that URL here. We can simply put a hashtag. All right, but in case this form is being processed by another view other than the one that is giving us more information about this blog, then we should input that URL here, the same way we were defining URL in that form. All right, hope somebody noted that. All right, so the next thing that we need to pass in is that for this form to be submitted, there is a unique key that needs to be submitted together with this form. This is for security purposes, to prevent what do they call it? They call it cross-site forgery protection. So it's kind of protecting this form from maybe external injection of data other than the one that we have captured using the various fields that we have defined. All right, so in here we are going to call that tag CSRF token, and that takes care of the rest. But then, okay, let me just save that. I think everything looks good, but I wanted to to show you something about this tag that we added here. So everything looks good, and again you also need to confirm if you have a submit button. Ensure that the button is not deactivated. In some cases you may fetch some code somewhere and you find that the submit button is deactivated, so that would not be an issue with Django. That's a front-end issue which your trace need to be aware on what to check and what not. Alright, so I think our form is ready for submission. So let me just come in here. Let me just have pass. I want to show you something about the CSRF token that we passed in. We reload here, then we come in here, then inspect that form. Alright, so we'll inspect the elements. So let me expand that. Let me expand that again. Okay, all right, this is actually what I'm looking for, not whatever I'm so this is the section. So the CSRF token that we passed in is a hidden field, and you see it has a value that comes with it. So this value changes every time you are submitting the form. For instance, for now we can see it's talking of 2G, I think it's 00 or 00. So if I reload, probably go back there, then we see that the value has changed. All right, so for Hezron, being a security personnel, a cybersec personnel, maybe you can try finding more information about how this token protects your application. And for the others as well, some of these concepts are very interesting to learn more about, so that at least you are able to protect your applications from malicious attack. All right, so the next thing, let us now proceed and fetch that data. We want to fetch this data that has been passed in from this form. And the way to do that, we need now to fetch each and every data that is being passed here. So the first data is the name, so we need to have the name there. And the way to fetch this data from the request that comes in is that we have request dot, then we have post, then we are going to have that. Then in here we need to pass the name. There is that name, that the name attribute that we passed, and we assigned another name. So for this name, its name is email. For this name, its name is message. So for name, we just have to fetch that. All right, so the next thing is the email. All right, then for the email we will have request dot post, then we are going to pass in the email. All right, then the next thing is the message, and in here we are going to pass in the message. All right, so this name is as we named the inputs here. All right, so then okay, we are going to keep it simple, and maybe just to mention something else, we may not want this form to be successfully submitted if at all say we do not have any data for the input. I'm not sure if it's in the previous sessions or I was training one of you, is that to ensure that your application is secure and also safe, besides the CSRF token, you also have to protect your web application from receiving empty inputs. So there are those inputs that you want to ensure that there is data in them, and you don't want to have a scenario whereby somebody is able to submit this data without a name. All right, so there are several levels of checks that you can use to ensure that a name has to be passed in, and before this comment is saved, all the fields must have some data. All right, and the very first check is usually in the front end. So in here we need to pass in the required attribute. For those who have done some front end, I'm sure you can appreciate that. And everyone, this is basically for everyone, whether you have done it or not. if you haven't done it, please be sure to check on these some of these attributes, so that you can, whenever you are consuming ready-made templates, you are able to do that in a way that you build a strong and secure application. So for the email as well, you can ensure to put in required there. Then for the text area as well, let us do that as well. Otherwise you will end up submitting, I'm not sure if this works. Okay, let me just have it. If it doesn't work, it will give me the error. I'm not sure if we need this for the text area, but I'll just have it there. Alright, so this is the first level of checks, and the second one should appear here. Alright, so you should ensure that you do not proceed to save this data without checking if any of these has missing data or it's none. Alright, and the third, and I think that this should be the final, is how you define these models. For instance, if I wanted an email to be empty, or rather to, if at all it's none, I save it as well, and if at all it has something, I save it as well. Then you would have passed in the null attribute here. All right. Otherwise, since we want to ensure that there is an email, there is a name, and all these other fields, then we need to set them as they are. Otherwise, for scenarios where you set the default, you do not need to pass in a value unless you want to set these to otherwise. All right, I hope you noted that. So the reason I said I want us to keep it simple is that I will not be doing those checks here, but just to show you how to do a check, you can simply check if name. That's enough. So we will talk of if name. Okay, so we can talk of if not name. I think that's the best. Okay, if not name, not sure this works. No, or not email, or not message. I think this should work. So this checks if any of them has some missing data. All right, let me just do a quick check just to confirm that this command will work, so we don't just have some things that are not working. So I have x is equals to 2, y is equals to none. All right, okay, so I want to check if not x. Okay, if not x, let me print something, none. All right, so I think that works. So I also want to check if not x or not y, then print missing. Okay, all right, so I wanted to confirm that this syntax is something that we can work with. So this command basically checks if any of these has missing value, and if it has, then you can return whatever error so that the user can proceed and input the required information. Otherwise, we proceed and save. So we are not going to do that for now. So we just need to pick up this information and proceed to save it. But before we do that, remember here we had a name, we fetched that, email and message. So created at this will be automatically updated. Approved, we are setting it to false by default. So again, we need to set in the post. All right, so the reason I said it's a little bit easier when you are processing that information under the same view is that this post is the same as what we have here, so no hassle of trying to fetch it. All right, so the way to save that comment, we can talk of let me have comment. All right, comment is equals to, I hope we have imported comment here, right? From blog.models we import that, and also talk of comment. All right, so in here we pass in that comment, right? Then in here we need to pass in a post. this one here, and that post happens to be what we have here, right? So you can have that. Then the next thing we need to have is the name. We pass in the name, the one that we have here. Then for the email, we pass in the email that we have here. Then finally we have the message. All right, we pass in the message. All right, so I think I forgot something, but anyway, that's okay. So if you use this method, there are actually two methods of saving information from a template. So if you use this method, then you proceed to talk of dot save. All right, otherwise we can have a simple way of doing that, and I think this is not the best way to do it, especially when I have to introduce two methods, which we might end up confusing you guys. All right, so now that I mentioned it, let me just show you how to do it. So you can use this works. Alternatively, you can use this comment.objects should have objects.create. all right, so once you do that, this information will be captured and saved to the comment what do we call it, comment model. All right, so once we are done, then okay, let us see if it works without returning a HTTP response. Sometimes it may give us errors. So I hope this was clear. So let's try and make it work and see if it's all right. So in here, let me have done in done. This is a test comment. All right, let's try. All right, okay, so let's hope that it has been saved, and we will be logging into our admin dashboard. All right, so remember, I think we haven't passed in the comment to the admin.py, so we need to do that. All right, okay, so in here we need to have admin.site.register. okay, then in here we pass in comment. All right, save that, then come back here and load. All right, we have comment, so click on that, and we see that we have a comment here. All right, so that has been saved successfully. So this does not give okay. All right, so basically we needed to let the user know that the comment has been posted and all that. So there are quite a number of ways to achieve that, but I will not be going into so much details about how to do it. I will show you one method that is a bit quiet, and I think it's a bit popular, and you will be able to use those concepts across quite a number of areas. So we will be looking at a method whereby you click leave comment, then the form is quietly submitted, and you receive probably a message somewhere here. All right, but before we get there, I want to use a different view to process whatever we have done here, because again, remember, there are some scenarios that you may be required to use a different view for, maybe you feel that this view has so much information and you require to use a different one. All right, so I hope at this stage you have been able to see how you can capture a form data using the same view that renders that HTML page, the one that houses the form. All right, the other one is not so different from what we have here, but we'll be required to pass in this particular post, because we do not have this post in all views. So whichever view that we define, we need to pass in this post object. All right, not so hard, it's something achievable. So let's do that. And unless there is a question so far. Any question? All right, okay, so if none, then let's move on. So in here we want to define another view that will help us process this information. All right, and so we can talk of post comment. All right, in here we just pass in a request, and we are going to do what we did here. So basically everything that I added here, let me take it up. Let me take it up. All right, so I'll be doing a check. If that method is post, then I proceed to do this. So in here we don't have so much information missing. We are only missing the post. All right, so we need to come up with a way. How do we fetch this particular post? Remember, we cannot do this here. Okay, but we can do it. It's only that we have some information that is missing. So where is it? All right, so we cannot do that here because currently we don't have the URL. So probably if we are to use this, then our goal will be, how do we get this URL? All right, pretty easy. We are going to come in here in our form, and we pass in the URL of this particular blog article. Right, remember this single .html page only has one object. It has the information of just one comment. So anyone, somebody with a question? Mike? Okay, all right, okay, no worries. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm just going to copy paste any of these input fields, and what I need to name this URL. Remember, we want to capture the URL because using this view that I just created here, we are not able to create a comment without this post here, right? So we need to do something to get hold of the particular post where this comment should fall in. Right, somebody? Okay, all right, sorry for that, Mike. All right, so the way to get hold of this post, we said just come in here. So I'm going to have another input field, and this one I'll name it URL, then ID, let me just name it URL. For now it doesn't have a big impact, so let me just save this as it is, then come back here and reload. Okay, so for now we haven't made. Okay, all right, so let me do this. Guys, allow me to do this, do that. So in here I remove that, and in here I remove let me remove that, call this URL. Right, okay, perfect. Then we do not need the user to import this, so this will be populated, or will be the data for this URL will be assigned by just accessing that page. So we are going to fetch it, and this is where we are going to get it. So remember, from this page, the information about the single blog post is under post. So we are going to just have let me show you. So we are going to pass in value here, a value attribute. Then in the value we should have, let's have the double quotations, pass in post dot URL. All right, so let's save, let's reload, and we see that we are able to get the URL of these blog post. Remember, this is up to this point, this is not Django related. Remember, we can simply type in the value that will appear in that input field. Let me just type in hello. If we reload here, we get hello as the value, the input that we already have to start with. So in here you can decide to edit or not. All right, so in this case, now that we want to pass in the value dynamically, so this is where we pass in that. So we are fetching from post, and we want to populate this field with URL. All right, save that. So if we save, this is what we get. But we don't want to show this to the user. We don't even want to have the user or make the user aware that we have this. Anyway, no harm, but it's not intended for them to know. So the first thing to remove is the label. Then the second one is to set this text type. Instead of having text, we have hidden. All right, so let's see. So that will hide that from the user view, but if you inspect, you should be able to see it somewhere. Right, let's do that. Email, we have that email, we have message, we have all right, we have the URL here, right, and the value is second name. Remember, whatever information you type in here, we fetch and we need to fetch it from the view. So we fetch the value, the information that you have for the value of that input field. So this is the value that we will be fetching, right? So back to our views, what you require to fetch here is the URL, right? And that, just like we are fetching the other information, all we need to do is to have that, right? I hope that's clear. Then in that case, we can now peacefully talk of that. All right, so we are trying to get hold of the post that is under which this comment is to appear. All right, so in this case, we just want to filter the post, and we want to filter that by the URL. So there are quite a number of ways you can use to get hold of these posts. One of them is filter, or the get method, without all these other information. All right, and they will give you the same results. Okay, all right, so now that we created a new view, we need to have a URL that connects us to this view. Don't forget that. So let me just introduce that path here. So we can call it post comment. Then for the views, we call them, let's have post comment. All right, and the name, let's have post comment. All right, nothing much, the same things that we have been talking about. So once you do that, come back to the single.html. So in here, in the action, you need to set up that URL and then pass in that. All right, okay, so I hope we are clear up to that point. In case I'm moving too fast, please just let me know, so that we can slow down a little and probably elaborate in case you're not getting it right. All right, so after having the URL in place, then we have this URL here connecting us to this view. Then we believe that will do the rest of the things. All right, so we want to do something. Once this comment has been posted, you can do a lot of things, but what we want, all right, now that we just wanted to illustrate how this one works, then we can talk of okay, all right, so one, we can return a HTTP response, because we need to return something, remember. So the way to do that, okay, maybe it's not the best, but for now, response, turn HTTP response, saved. This is actually the worst response that we can give in such a scenario, but let us just see how it works, because we want to appreciate this part, and we will be advancing this to something else. All right, so for now, let's try to work with that. My name is hello. I want to talk about hello@gmail.com, and I want to say hello world. All right, Let me save. All right, saved. Good. All right, so if I come back here, reload back, I see that we have a comment. This one has been done on the second post. All right, then maybe I can do that on the first post instead. I've been doing that so many times on the, okay, on the third. Let me do that on the third. That 3@gmail.com. Then that comment, post, saved. All right, I actually thought it would be a bad one, but anyway, this is not the best in production. We can do better than this, so this is just for the purposes of testing. Otherwise, if we removed this bit here, the return statement, let me show you why I couldn't have left that out. Let me save. Hello at gmail.com. hello without return statement. Right, save. You get such kind of an error, so you need to return something. So whatever you return would depend on whether you are on production, whether you are on development. So for now, that's why we are returning this. Otherwise, usually the comment will have been saved. Let me just check. Okay, I think this is it. Hello without return statement. But so you need to return something. So there's quite a number of things that you can return. One, you can also return JSON response, but that will not give any response to the user directory. Another way you can return what we have done, but then we need a better way of submitting such form, and this is where we want to introduce something else. I want us to use Ajax to submit that form. And what the Ajax comes to do is that it will give us a smooth way of submitting the form. And once the data has been submitted, we get a response here. Instead of maybe redirecting this user to another page, but then that's also something you can do, redirecting this user to another page, maybe a success page, confirming that whatever has been submitted was submitted successfully, or in case an error happened. All right, so there are quite a number of ways that we can do that. So just run the all the methods that you can, then be selecting the appropriate method whenever you have such a thing to work with. All right, so I want us to work with Ajax. No, Ajax. So this will give us a good opportunity for us, one, to work with Ajax, two, to also touch on JQuery concepts. We are not going to do them in depth. We are just kind of doing a demo that at least it will give you an opportunity. If you never interacted with those technologies, then at least you get some basics. All right, so what do we need to do? Okay, so we'll be working with base.html. This is where we need to fetch in data for our comments. All right, so let me do this. All right, so I hope we are all good. I hope we are together, guys. Also, Nimrod and Mike, hope we are together. In case anyone has a question, please let us know so that we don't leave you behind. So it's the same concept we are doing. We just want to have these comments to our DB. Just like somebody said that there are so many ways of killing a rat. So is it a rat or a cat? One of them or both of them. So it's for you to just look at the best method. That one, you have to keep your user in mind. The fact that we are able to submit it here, we are not really the end users of these web application. So whichever method that we choose, the fact that we have 1,000 methods that we can use for this, we at least need to use a method that will have we'll ensure that the user experience is the best. We don't want users, instead of them focusing on giving us positive comments about our blog post, all they are doing is probably complaining about how their experience was bad on our website. So that's not the best, so we can do better. All right, so we are going to be writing some Ajax code, and we are going to do that in the base.html. Remember, the base.html cuts across all templates, right? So to keep it clean, this is where we need to write those codes. Alternatively, you can define a JavaScript file to take care of that as well. Then you put it in here. All right, but in my case, I'll be typing in my the lines of code here. All right, so okay. All right, I'm not sure if I'll get the right resources. Let me, for now, try to test something here. I want to check if we have Ajax in place. Okay, I'll type in name. Pardon me for now. Let me just see. Okay, so that is Ajax. So okay, let me just confirm. So I think JQuery, I'm not sure if JQuery is the one that is responsible to giving us Ajax. Let me cut that, save, then reload this file. All right, we still get it, so that's not the one. Okay, let me check on these. Okay, interesting stuff. Anyways, so let me just check so that we don't start at a point where we are not together. So before we start, we use Ajax and jQuery. We need the JavaScript files that are supposed to take care of that. Okay, not really taking care, but adding to our environment. What do they add? So basically they add what can we call it, or they make it possible for us to be able to use these functions. All right, so let me try to remove this JavaScript here, and let me do that check. All right, still there. I'm not sure which one is responsible for that, but then we can do a quick check. Ajax, jQuery Ajax. All right, so let me see. Do we have download anywhere or plugins? All right, downloads. Okay, min.js. All right, so this could be saved in one of our files, or there are these rings. All right, there are these rings that we can use to load the script, and I believe this could be the one that is taking care of both the jQuery and Ajax. And the fact that the fact that we are not getting it right when we test, it's probably an issue with cache buildup on my browser. So just ensure to load any of these. So we expect jQuery should work, but most of them should also give us the Ajax functionality. All right, so let's proceed and start typing in some codes. All right, okay, so the first thing we can do is there is a command that on a block of code that we have in place that checks, first of all, checks if the document has fully loaded, and only when it will proceed and execute the form submission. Right, so the first thing that we need to do, All right, so before we type in JavaScript code here, we need to have script tags here. All right, script. All right, so in here we can type in some JavaScript code, console.log or whatever JavaScript code that you may have. All right, so in here we need to do a check on this document. All right, so this is meant to check if the document is ready or it has loaded successfully. All right, only when we can work on submitting this form. All right, so that block does the check. It will only execute what we type in here only after the page has fully loaded. Remember, you might have visited a web page, and before you are able to see all the content, there is that kind of animation that we have, or probably some part of the information has not appeared yet. So that is the responsibility of this block, to check if at all the page has fully loaded. All right, so once the page has fully loaded, let me show you what we need to do here. For now, I need to cross that blog bin. All right, so this one, let me do that here, and also work with the base. All right, so I'll come in here. I want to capture this form because I want to listen to the action of submitting this form. All right, so the best way to capture this form is by giving it an ID, and this ID we can call it comment form. You can call it comment form. That's the ID. So in this block, we need to listen to that event of submitting a form. So one, whatever I'm writing, these are what do we call them? They are JQuery. It's the JQuery. It's not really a language, but what JQuery does, there is vanilla JavaScript, which when we are writing the various commands, they are a bit lengthy. For instance, let me just give you an example that might give you a hint of why we may need to use JQuery. I'm not so good in JavaScript, just pardon me if I don't make everything clear, but at least I'm going to to lay some foundation for you guys who want to dive into front end as well. So for instance, I want to get the ID or the information related to this name. So we start typing in. We have document dot get element by ID. All right, then I think the ID for this is name. All right, okay, so before we get the value, I'm not sure if we talk of val. Let me see, val. Okay, not working. Value. All right, okay, so this is how to get the value. All right, and if we are talking about jQuery, all we need to do is have that, then inside the quotations we have the hash there, then that's the ID. All right, then cross and do that. All right, so this has been simplified to document.get element by ID, then the name. So I believe even if you are the one, you would prefer using this kind of shorthand method. Right, so I think this for the val, right, so it talks of please fill in this one. Okay, let me see. Okay, do you talk about value? Okay, value. So the value shows that we do not have anything. So if we type in hello there, then come back here, value, we see we have hello. If we use the other vanilla JavaScript way, value, we get that. So this is what Ajax, okay, not Ajax, but jQuery does. Right, so for us to reference this form here, we need to get hold of that form, and this is the way to do it. All right, so to call an ID, we do have that. All right, and in here we want to listen to an action or an event, and this event we call it submit. So we want to get hold of that listen to submit function. If submit happens to this form, then we need to define a function here. Then in the function we pass in an event, and once we pass in an event, then we open that and then continue to process that. All right, so in here we are listening to submit event, and if we get it, then we need to prevent that form from being submitted by default, or prevent the default action. So the default action of this form submission is following this URL and doing the rest of the things. All right, but we want to prevent that default action, so we have prevent should be default, prevent default, then I think that should be okay. All right, so once we try to submit that form, then we need to prevent that default action. In here we can talk about console.log, so that at least we confirm that this thing is working as expected. Right, confirmed. Right, save that. All right, so let us do some test here. Okay, so console. Right, so in here, let me come try to leave comment. Okay, all right, message. All right, okay, that didn't happen as expected, so probably something is wrong. We need to identify what's not working for us. So so the first thing we did, okay, script, I think that looks good. Then we have document dot, we want to check if it's ready, then pass in a function. All right, so that is where we committed an error. All right, so one of these shouldn't be here. It should cross this function here. All right, okay, actually we have seen a change in color, so I think that should be the case. All right, so let us try that again. Then right, let me type that. Done. Wow, still not working. Let me hard refresh. All right, okay, 1 2, okay, just a moment. Let's go there and see how things work, because again, even before we continue typing, we need to ensure that we are able to capture these events in stages rather. So let me check message. All right, still not working. Okay, let us still identify if we made some mistake somewhere. So okay, I think it's because I haven't saved this form. Okay, let me do that. Maybe that's another area that I missed out. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, so for now the default behavior of our form submission has been prevented, right? And we see we are able to capture that. So I believe, okay, let me have that, so that we see if, all right, we see if it has been submitted to our DB. All right, so let me get this last one, and we see we have message. Was that the last thing that okay, all right, so this form has not been submitted as it is. All right, so far so good. We have achieved what we wanted. So the next thing will be now fetching the data. All right, and to the comments in JavaScript, we can use double forward slash. Right, okay, so to get hold of this data here, this is how we define variables. So we have name. Of course, there are multiple ways of doing that. We are not going to cover that, but this is one of the ways that you can use to assign variables. So we have name is equals to, so we want to use JQuery to fetch that data. right? So we pass in the quotations, then the hashtag. In here we mention the ID. So this is where now the ID plays a role. Otherwise, in the previous method that we are using, this ID was not useful. Alright, so we pass in that ID, and finally we talk about var. Alright, once we do that, I think we can now move a little bit faster by fetching the email is equals to the same thing that we have here, right? Email dot var. Alright, then we have a semicolon at the end. Then the other one is message. Alright, then in here, remember we are passing in the ID. Alright, okay, then okay, in here I need to mention var. Then we also have var URL, remember. Then the ID should be URL. Alright, so in here we confirm that the URL has that ID. Alright, we have it in place. Alright, so once we get this information, it's now time to check if we have fetched here or we fetched the actual data that we intend, because the user might decide not to have the name. Alright, so this is how to do the check. So we do an if check. Remember we said that if you run one language, then it becomes very easy for you to run other languages. So this if check is this, it's almost the same. Basically it's the same that is used across all the languages that we have. Maybe just something, just a little of it may change. The syntax may change a little, but the concept remains the same. Alright, so in here we need to have if not name, right? Then or for in JavaScript, that is how we do it, or not email. So what we are doing here is that we want to check if any of these fields has some missing data or is empty, it's none. Then we need not to proceed saving this form. We need to alert the user that, hey, your form is not complete. All right, so then or that's or not message, and maybe we can also check, but we don't expect to have a missing URL value, or not URL, no harm. Right, then if that happens, then proceed and do this. We need to alert. We need to do an alert. Please fill all details. All right, and once we do that, let's return. So this simply tells this block of code to exit, not to proceed and process the rest of the lines of code that we are going to include down here. All right, so assuming so this is just a check. It only checks if any of this information is missing, then returns. So on the other hand, if all these variables have data in them, then we proceed to fetch the data, and we can assign the data to another variable here. So we can have form data, and we assign it to not sure if we call it a dictionary in JS, but let us just call it dictionary. All right, and in here we assign name to okay, let me see if this works this way. We assign name to name, right? Then we have email to email. All right, the next thing is message. All right, then finally we have URL. We have URL. All right, so maybe before we move on, can we do some console console.log and see what we get. Form data. All right, let's see how things work here. All right, so name, I want to call myself man. All right, man testing. All right, then leave a comment. Okay, and we see our data here, right? So basically our data is now ready to be submitted to our database. All right. So okay, so after we are able to have that in place, there is something else that is missing here. Remember, I think we needed to pass in the CSRF token. All right. Otherwise, if we don't pass that in, we will be getting errors here. All right. So I may not need to fetch it in here. I can just assign it directly. This one has a we call it we can mention it as a unique case. So we have CSRF middleware token. All right, so that's how to fetch it. Then in here, let's pass in that. Then we pass in CSRF token. All right, so that's a healthy way of working with the CSRF token. All right, so once we do that, once we are happy about what we have achieved so far, just move outside this dictionary here. All right, so the next thing is now sending that data using Ajax. All right, and why are we using Ajax? Somebody may ask. If at all we have lost track in that and we are spending more time trying to use Ajax. So as I mentioned earlier, is that Ajax will silently submit this information and return a message here indicating that the form was submitted. That's one. It will prevent the page from refreshing. It will also help us empty this form so that you cannot submit it twice. You cannot submit the information twice. And Ajax can also be used in a scenario whereby I think you have seen the Facebook behavior whereby you post in a comment and immediately it appears, I don't know, it's below or above the comment form without reloading that page. So that is the work of Ajax, and it can also be used to fetch information, maybe by say just click something here and information populates just below that page without actually reloading that page. So it's something powerful that you can consume, right? So don't get tired. Let us just run the concept. It's for you. Then once you run the concept, it's for you in future to decide if you actually need it. All right, so this is how to initialize Ajax. All right, so that's how to initialize Ajax. So in here we need to mention the type. All right, remember the type is still following us, and the type in this case is post. All right, and we also need to mention the URL. So in this case, which URL is going to process our form. So let me pass in this. All right, okay, so actually I'm not even sure if we need it here because everything will be processed from here. All right, so we have the %sign and we have those quotations %. I think everything looks good here. Everything looks good. All right, so the next thing we need to pass in is the data. All right, so the data in here is the form data, the way we named it here, this variable here. All right, so once we are done with that, we suppose we will get a success message. All right, so that is once this has been sent forward, we expect to get some response. And so we expect two things: one, success, and two, an error. All right, so for the success, let us pass in that, and we name it. We have a function there. This is the shorthand of calling a function. Then we have a response. All right, once we pass in the response, we can then process that. All right, again, it's not always that we submit a form successfully. maybe let me just console.log success. All right, so it's not always that we submit a form successfully, we can get an error. All right, and this is how to do it. So there are some arguments that we pass in here, xhr, and we also have status, and we also have error. Well, not so necessary. We can just pass in the error, that's enough. Sometimes you may not go short of argument that you can pass, but then we want to pass in the error, and this error should be what we got here. All right, so that is it, and I think we can do the test now. I think everything looks good. So in here, let me save. All right, so in here, let me reload that, come in here. Okay, let me call myself test at gmail.com. man is testing. All right, so let's try to submit that. All right, we get a success message here. Come back here, try to check, reload, check that, man is testing. So I hope you have noted that this kind of submission did not make any noise. No, it didn't reload. Our comment just went through. All right, so we want to make this better. We want to at least make our user happy. So in here we can pass in, let me just pass in a paragraph here. Hello there. Okay, just want to confirm something. All right, hello there. So this is where I want us to pass in the success message, and maybe I can pass in an ID here saying success. All right, then I don't need to pass in anything here. All right, so the next thing that okay, something else we need to do, is that let me show you something here. Let me show you. We come to blog, where is it? I want to get hold of these views, right? Okay, for now let me work on it this way. Where is that comment? All right. Where did I put that comment? Okay, post comment. So for now, when using Ajax, some of these responses are ignored, but then we can be fair enough, and the standard way of doing it is returning a JSON response. All right, so we have return JSON response. All right, response. This one is usually in form of a dictionary. Let me see. Quick fix from Django HTTP. Then in here we can pass in message and comment successfully saved. Okay, I hope that's the spelling. All right, so we want to process this message, so let's come to the base.html, where we are processing on success. This is what we should get. All right, okay. All right, so response. So in here we want to get what? So response is the dictionary that we passed in, so we need to pass in response.message. all right, then anyway, this is not so necessary, but we can just have it there so that at least we can see if we actually get the response. All right, then the next thing that we can do is to capture the success that we have defined here. Remember, there is this ID here that we defined, so we want to add a message to that paragraph. All right, so this is how to do it. Success, and we are going to talk of success.text. all right, so in this case we can pass pass in a custom text here, or pass in what we have gotten from the view. All right, so that is that. All right, so let's reload. Okay, so hi at gmail.com. Hi man. Right, do that, and we see this. All right, so I don't want us to learn so much of front-end technologies together here. This was meant to be a Django training, but then we see that it's working. All right, and we have confirmed that we are able to see these comments. So there are a number of things that I would want you to, that is, if at all you want to practice around this, right? You want to run some Ajax, you want to at least get the concept right. We have done it for the Django part, and it's working. So for you should be to do two things. All right, maybe more than two, but at least you can do two things to this form. One, we don't want this message to remain here forever. All right, so as you practice along, just add a function that times out this message. Once a comment has been done, have this one as it is. Then after some few seconds, we remove it. All right, the next thing that I would want us to do is to reset this form. Remember, we do not want to submit this form 1,000 times with the same piece of information. All right, and if we have to do that, then let the user retype that information. All right, so the way this should be working is that once you click on rev comment, it just should submit the comment, then reset this form so that it's empty and let it to receive in more data, right? And that will mark the end of us working on how to submit this form. I hope that was clear, guys, unless anyone has a question with that. Any question? Are we getting it? Are we getting it, guys? Please confirm. A thumbs up would do. Okay, all right. So that's a small task that you require to do in that area, and maybe the next thing that we need to do before we call it a day, we now need to display these comments on here. That is all right. So it's pretty simple, and remember we said that we need to approve the comments before they are published. So I would want to approve some of them, so I will be adding a field here whereby I can just approve them from by using this view without necessarily clicking on each and every one and doing that here. So I'll do that very quickly. I'm not sure if we covered that with you guys, but let me see. admin.py file. So this is where you define whether it should be editable using that view, and this is how to do it. So you define a class, right? Define a class, comment admin, that's the name I'll give it. Then I'll pass in admin.model admin. Then I'll have list editable, and I'll pass in this field with the models. I'll pass in approved so that I'm able to edit it from that view. Will it work? Let me see. It may give us some issues, but let me see. Comment admin, save that. Hope it works. If not, we see. All right. Okay, all right. So in that case, we need to ensure that the fact that we want it to be editable, we need to have a list display as well, right? And whatever we are passing in, this should be one of them, all right? And okay. So for now, let's put things a little bit easy. So let me just display the name in there. All right. Okay, all right. So it doesn't look so good. Here we needed a function that is supposed to show us what we had previously. So again, I'll give that as an assignment to see how to. I believe you had seen what we had. We're basically displaying. Let me show you. We are basically displaying this. All right. So a simple assignment. See how you can map that here. Right. Because by just seeing the names of those who posted the comments do not really make sense. All right, so I'll be approving a number of comments by doing that and saving. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is that we need to come here in the views.py and the view that is to process our blogs, our comment. This is the view, blog details, the one that is responsible for what we are seeing here. So we are just going to have comments, and we have we can name it comments is equals to so in here there are quite a number of ways of fetching this comment, but because we have hold of this post, all right, if we view that post, we have it here. So using so the easiest way of all to filter the post or the comments that are related to the current post. So this is the way to do it. Post dot comments. All right. Post dot comments. Let me see if everything looks good here. All right, and this is the comment that we are talking about. So you need to have passed in the related name here. All right, and this is the one that will give us the comments that are related to this post that we have here. And remember, this post is what we have here. All right, I think we had not covered that. And in here we need to filter. We are not just displaying all comments. We need to filter, and we are filtering by those that are approved, where that is approved is equals to true. All right, once we do that, then we can happily pass in our comments here. All right, save that. Then the next destination is moving to our single.html file. So we need to identify where those comments are being displayed. We need to identify that. I think this is it. So okay, so what we need to do, I think we can all right, so maybe we can do this. So in this case we do not have the repetitive block, but I believe this should be it, this one here. All right, so we can have if comments, if else, right? So if comments, do that, otherwise sorry, I wanted to do that. So if we have comments, do that, otherwise say no comments. All right, then in here we need to have for comment in comments. Then this one we just put it down here. All right, then in here we need to pass in we have comment dot name. Then this should be comment the time the comment was posted. So we have comment, okay, sorry, we have comment dot created at, I think that should be it. Then in here we need to pass in the message. All right, that should be that. Then in here we have the message, and then we don't need the reply button. All right, let's reload. Let's see if we got it right. Okay, all right. And I think we are able to, okay, I think everything should look good for now. We may not need the image, but let me just ensure that it's visible, though not being in use in our case. All right, so we are able to see that. And how about counting the comments? We need to do that as well. So 3 comments, let me see. Okay, let me see. I'm not sure if this one works. Let me see. Comments dot count. Will it even work? Let us test. Oh, interesting. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Oh, nice. All right, so the way to display the count of the comments that we have, this is the way to do it. And maybe we can have that. All right, so that's it. We have 6 comments. This is post, this third post. Let me have see second post. We see we have 0 comments. Okay, no comments. Right, man test. All right, test, man testing. Let us see if the man will be able to test. So basically, if you send that reload, it shouldn't show up because it has not been approved. Let's come back here, reload, and then let me save, approve that, save, come back here, reload. All right, we see that we have 1 comment. All right, and we see that man is doing some tests. All right, and I think that's it. But there is just one concept that I think exists. That concept is supposed to take care of this S that we are having here. So it's able to check if this comment is just 1, then it returns just comment. But if there are many, then it handles that by adding the S. All right. So there is a functionality, such functionality in Django templates. So please check that out, and also instead of having what we have here, use that functionality. And I believe everything else looks good. We are able to post in a comment, and once we approve it, then we can see it there. So in case you you want to take this further, instead of setting approved to be false by default, maybe you can write, let me just call it a script or a function that checks whatever comment that is coming in. Most of the spams that I have identified, I see that mostly they do pass in some URLs. All right, so you can define a function or a script that checks for such traits in a comment, and if it has that, then it should automatically be set to pending. Right, but if it looks green, then it should automatically be approved. So that's another area you can try running and see if you can be able to achieve that.